call this meeting of the Woodland Planning Commission to order at 7:04 PM on April 21st of 2022. The role of the Planning Commission is to hold workshops to review and make recommendations to the City Council on all manner of policy and legislative activities. In some cases, we act as a quasi-judicial board for land use cases, which can then be appealed to either the council, the hearings examiner, or a court. We won't have any of that tonight, though. Would you please call the roll? Mr. Russell.
Brian Mattson,
Present.
Kel Jensen,
Here.
Shauna Gawthorne,
Present.
Sharon Watt.
Present.
All right. Fantastic. Next we would do citizen communication for items not on the agenda. I don't see anyone in the audience. I'm going to come back to that once we've got the virtual meeting going. So I'm going to skip ahead if that's all right and move on to approval of the agenda. And to do that, I'm going to need help from some other commissioners.
I move that we approve the agenda for, what is the date, April 21st?
2022. All right.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda. Any discussion, anything needs changed? Nope. All right. Let's vote then. Is anyone opposed to approving the agenda as written? No? All right. Motion carries. Next up is approval of the minutes from our March 17th, 2022 meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes from March.
I second that.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded by Brian Mattson and Shauna Gawthorne to approve the minutes from March 17th. Any discussion about that? That's good. All right, fantastic. Let's take the vote then. Anyone opposed to approving the minutes as written? Motion carries. On to the meat of the meeting. We have a discussion and workshop. First up is special events workshop for proposed code amendments regulating the use of special events permits within the city of Woodland. We have a staff presentation on that by chance. Do we need to pause? Do we want to pause for the virtual meeting, or are we ready
I
to go?
believe it should be starting now. I think,
Okay.
Dolly.
Fantastic.
So let me know if it's
Yep,
done.
I'm on. And we have some visitors.
You want to, what's that one? It's actually
Joe.
My mic's on. It's not working.
Okay, we can hear you now. Okay, we can hear you now.
this one has to be on.
Yes. Actually, this one has to be on, because this is. Well, let's see if I can tell it.
So we have, can we hear folks who are in the meeting?
Hold that there a second. Hang up your phone.
Should I turn on the speakers up here?
It should already be recording here.
Well, just so that I can hear whoever's on the go-to meeting. Or do I not want to hear them?
Yes, your speaker should be on,
Okay.
and your microphone should be on.
Okay.
Can we hear folks?
I'm just worried we're gonna get some feedback. Is Joe Turner in the meeting?
That's, yeah, something. It's the wrong.
Okay. Is Mike Peterson in the meeting? Well, welcome to the 21st century. We're doing great.
Mike Peterson.
Oh, I'm Mike Peterson.
Hello.
Hi, Mike. We can hear you.
How you doing?
Good. Can you do us a favor and mute your mic, please?
Okay, so you're in charge right now.
I can. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about those technical difficulties. We do have a PowerPoint if.
Yep.
Yes. From beginning.
You good?
Okay, so I think it's time to get ready and go. Good evening, everyone. My name is David Lucchese. I'm the Associate Planner with the City of Woodland. For anyone who may be watching virtually, I do not believe we have anyone in person at the moment. Our first workshop of 3 will be on our special event permitting process. We have a work plan set out here that is tentative. Last week we had our first code discussion and workshop. Last month. That was on March 17th, 2022. This will be the second workshop in which will be April 21st, 2022, and we will be hopefully having a public hearing in May, on May 19th, 2022. The expectation is that it will reach City Council in June. Right now it's penciled in for the regular meeting on June 2nd, 2022, but that may change based on availability. And that would be an introductory workshop followed by 2 readings later in the month and into July. Yep, you're good. So just as a reminder, for the current system, which has not been written into code, which is one of the reasons we are working on the current code change here, the applications are accepted by the Clerk Treasurer's Department and routed to the relevant parties for review after fees and deposits paid, and after the department heads and the departments have a chance to review and give their recommendation, it will go before the City Council with the staff comments provided. So I just wanted to give a little idea of what people looking to apply for a special event permit see on a website as of now, which describes the steps and what is required under the current processes. I understand it might be a bit hard to read. I can provide a copy of it to anyone who wishes via email. this is also up on our website, but what it outlines is basically that current system. The application form comes in and is evaluated first by staff, then by council, who make the ultimate decision. Yep. The new code outlines the expectations for event sponsors, i.e. those who are going to hold the event and are applying for the event, as well as the process and procedures. To change it, it also changes it from a council approval to an administrative approval by staff. So it will go around, so the new process will have it routed to department heads and interested parties, just like the old system, but the ultimate decision, at least the first round of the ultimate decision, is made by staff members based on their understanding of the code and their understanding of the responsibilities and the expectations of the event. And potentially one of the things that I think we need to discuss is that an appeal of this decision, should the applicant decide to, would then go to the city council. So up on the board, we do have a couple of the definitions directly from the proposed code. I put this up because we did have some discussion last month regarding specific descriptions as well as exemptions from the code. Specifically, the proposed code defines a special event as any dance, festival, or event involving city property and or city streets where the number of individuals expected to attend is equal to or greater than 100 people, or all events where city streets or sidewalks are blocked, modified, and or impeded regardless of the number of people expected to attend. A special event would also include events on private property where the expected attendance would exceed 500 persons. Specifically regarding the exceptions, there are a couple that were discussed and a couple in which I edited the definition to meet some of the things that brought up. Specifically, I wanted to point out to what's listed as B, which is a service group, school, or church-related fundraising effort, which may have an incidental effect on city property. Specifically where the expected attendance is 150 people or less, attendance is expected to be transitory or short-term, and no public access to any city property is blocked off, denied, or otherwise limited, either explicitly or implicitly. So this could include stuff like bake sales, sale of Girl Scout cookies, car washes, and the like. It also exempts school events on school grounds. We do not generally regulate that, and that would be up to the school district. And special events that would be exceptions to required permitting, I would like to specifically point out funeral and wedding processions using Woodland Public Roads between a separate ceremony and either a reception or a cemetery, provided that roadways are not blocked and the procession does not stop. This, I point this out as this has, within staff, this has been brought up, that this could be vague. The intent is not to make weddings and funerals themselves exempt if they were at, say, one of our beautiful parks, but rather to not force mourning people on a procession of people celebrating a wedding to get an event just to drive the procession from point A to point B. It is staff's belief that it is doing so would not necessarily be required based on safety and expectations of that, so long as they are not blocking or otherwise disturbing the public streets. Also, obviously, groups required by law and local ordinance to be assembled would not require one, as well as temporary sales, again covering Girl Scout cookies and stuff like that, stuff in that vein. In regards to the application process, as I said, our goal was to make it fairly similar to the existing process. We did not want to make more work for our staff or for the council or for anyone, and try to make it streamlined so people who are used to applying for these event permits, which can in some cases be annually done, do not have to learn a whole new system. So it's still going through the clerk treasurer's office and being applied for through the clerk treasurer's office, and then it will require comment and or discussion among staff, specifically senior staff, related to any potential conditions that would be required, any potential issues based off the specifics of the event in question, and any concerns that staff may have in regards to safety, public use, or any other aspect of the special event. And so I would like to, from here, open the floor for discussion. I know we've discussed this in the past, so please feel free to ask any questions, get any clarification from me or any of the staff present.
Thank you, David. Let's see, maybe we should see if anybody, session has ended. Okay, well, I guess we won't ask anyone virtually.
Sorry. I also have here for you a copy of it with notes from Amanda, who was here at the last meeting. She looked through it, and from her eye as someone who's processed a number of these special events, she wrote some notes and suggestions that I wanted to provide to you just in case she could not show up at the meeting herself.
Thanks.
Is this the same thing?
Yeah, he didn't realize.
Yes, it's the same thing with notes from Amanda, who is one of our clerks and who I had look over it. So just a couple points that she brought up.
But is that what's in red?
Yes, yes, her comments are in red.
Okay, any, I guess we can't get any comments from
Yep.
the internet yet. But any first thoughts? I'll start with Brian.
I don't have any first thoughts. I mean, not very familiar with special events permits in general. It all seems logical to me. I don't see anything that looks weird or out of place to me.
Okay.
I agree.
Shauna,
I agree.
you like it as is?
Yes.
All right, fantastic.
Hey, I do have a question. So this special events code was largely generated by staff to help them process these things, correct?
Yes, that is the
Okay.
goal. The goal is to write code in order to give them some
Right.
backup, and because it's not currently in the code, should we decide to, say, reject one, even based on some of the safety aspects in this, it could lead to potentially issues. That has not happened yet. We're just trying to prepare the staff and make sure everything's backed up and the process is going to be consistent across the board.
I am certainly sympathetic to making staff's jobs easier to do.
Sharon?
Okay, I guess I'm not clear on, so we haven't seen these, the comments that are in red, when I read the thing online, they weren't there, so.
This was provided to me today.
Right.
I just wanted to provide you with her comments as she wanted to come in online. And in case she could not, she gave me those to provide you.
So, I mean, we haven't really had time to process these comments.
Which is part of the reason why I think we did a second workshop. one of the things that started the conversation with us is that we were talking to Joey and Amanda and asking them to look at it, and the question of fees kept coming up. And we had to start thinking about it over a series of discussions that we don't want to write that in the code. We already have a fee resolution, so we don't want to start putting numbers and references in the ordinance,
That you're just gonna have to change.
which leads to the clerks taking a deeper dive, and while they're looking at it, it's like, well, this doesn't make sense, and this doesn't make sense. And, you know, it's kind of that second iteration of new code.
Yep. Similarly to you, I am not someone who deals with this on a day-to-day basis, which is why we have the clerks looking over, and we are thankful that they are more than willing to do so. I know Amanda wanted to join virtually today and would have her comments in person that way. Sadly, that does not seem to be possible at the moment. So my plan moving forward is to move forward with this and write a final complete draft, taking into account those comments as needed. I believe most of the comments are, it's mostly things that I got wrong with the current process and notes in regards to that, and less substantive parts. As I said, one of my goals was to make it as consistent as possible for both the clerks and for the people applying, and to make sure that it meets their expectations and as well as the council and the commission's expectations. So, for instance, I know one aspect of that we've discussed is whether or not the specific deposits, 2 times the base deposit fee, should be in that, or whether it should be in the fee resolution next time the fee resolution comes up. And comments regarding that.
Yeah, I'm inclined to, on most of this stuff, to defer to the folks who are going to be handling it. I think this is, very little of the specifics are really, I think, kind of affect the outcome. It's more about the process, right?
Yes.
One thing I saw that in your definition, minor quibble, but it could be important.
Mm-hmm.
Say a special event also includes events on private property where the expected attendance exceeds 500 persons and where woodland public streets and parking are likely to be affected. Could we change that "and" between persons and where to an "or"?
I am okay with that. My way is that could open the staff into making decisions of, okay, this party has 15 people, but we believe it might have an impact on the streets, which is
Okay.
not really, to me, and this is just my comment, it's not really the goal of this, but that is something that could definitely be changed if you feel strongly in regards to that.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm all right with that too. I just, I imagined, packing 400 people onto
Yeah.
a small city lot.
Yep,
and
and we
spreading
can-
out to see the street.
We can definitely discuss that 500 person limit. That's definitely where one of the aspects, not just that 500 person limit, but the greater than 100 person limit. I would love some advice and suggestions if you believe that those are too high or too low.
I guess on the 100, it's a nice round number. That seems nice to me. On 500, I wonder, on private property, I wonder, what a fire marshal thinks about that. I guess, private homes don't have like a maximum occupancy, right? They're just,
No, generally not.
so is there any life safety code that addresses that?
Under the building code, when it's constructed, yes.
Okay, but so when it's built, there's a maximum occupancy, or is that just maximum people living there?
Maximum occupancy, and they're typically posted on every structure.
But not for
Not for
private
homes.
homes, though.
Private homes.
Not for private homes, yes.
No.
Right.
Sorry,
Okay.
I thought you meant maybe the structures of the park.
Okay. I don't know, maybe just run it, I'm sure at
Yeah.
some point the fire department's gonna get involved the same way, maybe run
Yes.
it by them.
Yep, I will run it by them.
Yeah, I don't know, any other thoughts? I think you're doing a great job, looks reasonable to me. Shauna?
Shauna?
Go ahead,
On
Sean.
the permit required on the second page, page 2, under B where it says, when such an event will be an exercise of the rights protected by the First and Fourth Amendment, United States. Right there in the red, it says define religious activities. Does this include church service in park or church event gathering? The reason this is brought up is because we have several events that are being put on by churches, and they're taking up a good, I think she meant chunk of the park.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, define religious activities, but that, why would you define what activity it is if it's in such an event, we exercise the right protected the First and Fourth Amendment of the United States? I'm confused on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've had multiple church events apply for this.
Okay.
One more recently was a Sunday sunrise service at Horseshoe Lake that was only gonna have like 35 expected people.
Okay.
So they were just wanting to rent the Horseshoe Lake shelter, not considered a special event. But then we have like the Center Church and another Portland church that are wanting to do Horseshoe Lake events as well, with 50 to 100 people. The difference with that though is that they're wanting to put up a tent outside, they're wanting to cook inside, hold their service outside, have music, do that kind of stuff. So at what point do we count all church events as a special event, or are we counting, is there some kind of leeway between, I think is kind of the question.
Well, how would you go about doing that?
Right, I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the question.
So on page 1, where it goes into a special event does not include the following, I think it gives you a bunch of loopholes, like under A on page 1, any meeting or gathering in a building intended for assembly occupancy where the number of persons in attendance does not exceed the occupancy capacity. That's all church event stuff. I think this is, special events would only apply when you're using city property, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, people are talking about in the park.
Yeah.
So again, that's
So-
to specifically rule out events outside of city property, or that might be, say, 100 people in a church or a church basement or a private.
I think
Site.
what Sharon was getting at is, does B exempt them from needing a permit even if they're using city property? Is that what you're getting
It
at?
does not, though.
It would be a different permit,
Yeah, it's saying you can't charge them a fee, and you have to do it real fast.
but it's a lower fee.
Lower fee?
right? Yeah.
Okay.
It's whether we consider it a special event and then it goes into the special event package, or whether they just fill out a facility rental request. That's kind of the difference.
Right.
Facility rental request, it's a single page, they say we're gonna have 29 people, we're gonna use a Horseshoe Lake shelter, that's it. The special events, we're asking for plot maps, timelines, how many people, where is any of your equipment. It's much more in detail, because we assume there's more people.
Think like jogging club versus the triathlon, which uses the entire park and they have vendors and
So you would base off basically how many people are attending
That's part of it.
It's part of it.
versus define religion or if it's just a get together.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a little unclear, does there currently seem to be like a conflict going on that needs to be resolved there, or is it?
I wouldn't call it a conflict necessarily, but going back to my examples, I deal with most of the just facility rental requests, and Amanda kind of takes through all of the special events. And more recently, we had a church wanting to do a Sunday sunrise service, but just use the shelter. They had less than the amount of people that we normally say, and I just took it as a facility rental request. And so that we kind of talked about, well, should we have done it differently or not? So I think that's kind of part of what's asking for this qualification, is are we gonna kind of filter them all in the same route, as in it's a church event per se, so they all have to kind of go through this special events access, or do we have this cut off of, well, they're saying they're only gonna be 29 people, they're only gonna use the shelter, so we're gonna treat them like we would Shauna renting a Horseshoe Lake shelter for a family gathering of 39 people.
So I think yes. I think if it's small enough, regardless of who it is, you don't need to treat it like a special event.
But I think that's kind of what her question is.
Okay.
Do we say any religious activity in the park is being treated like a special event versus?
Okay. Are the larger events? I mean, is it so far? Is that going smoothly, or is there?
For the most part, I think.
Okay.
From my understanding, for the most part, it's mainly, as I said, smoothing out the kinks, making sure it's backed up, because there might very well be in the future issues that come up.
Do you guys have like a checklist?
We are creating all of that.
Okay,
There
of
has
questions
not
that you would
been-
ask?
Right, so there's not been a lot of that for
A
a
flow
long
chart?
time. Right, so what we're kind of
Yeah.
coming to is because of COVID shut everything down for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
is that we've got people coming in and they're filling out facility rentals, because that's what they've done for years, and we're trying to kind of re-corral people into the right direction.
Yep, and so not only are they working on that, but I know Amanda is looking at the existing application form and finding ways to improve it, not just to make it clear, but to make sure it matches this as well. So that's part of this as well.
Okay. Fantastic. Any last thoughts before we move on?
So who is going to define religious activities?
I will work on that, and I will pass it by our lawyer.
No, thank you.
It's a very good question. That's why I think a flow chart or some
Yeah.
sort of,
Everybody likes a flow chart. Bubbles
list
and
of
colors and arrows.
questions and, you ask, and you always want to make sure you ask everybody the same exact question, so you're not treating anyone differently than.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's a huge part of this, is making it the same for everyone. That's part of the reasoning behind taking it from a council decision to a staff decision. So it's not, hopefully, it's, knock on wood, it's less just based on, how the council's feeling, what the council thinks. It's more based on, these are the standards, this is the code, let's interpret it and let's say either you meet the standards,
Correct.
or
Like
here's
you're-
how you can meet the standards. I don't think the idea is let's give everyone a way to say no to everyone. No, the idea is let's make sure it's clear and let's make sure we've got the rules and the standards and it's good to go.
So just a hunch. I think we're doing a great job, and everybody's thinking about it ahead of time. Things are going to come up, regardless. So maybe I don't know. We can check in a year and see how it's working. See if we need
Yeah.
to make any changes.
I mean, there's always going to be things that come up. I mean, as much as we try to write code for perfection, people will go around it and things will come up and things will just not work or need tweaked. So that is why this process is here.
All right. Fantastic. I want to make sure. No, oh, we got the meeting back. Mike Peterson, are you wanting to make any comments about our special event permits by any chance?
These are the next.
Yes, he's for the ATVs.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I would encourage commissioners to spend a little more time with this over the next month, and think of anything, bring it to our new public hearing in May.
No workshop.
Another workshop.
All workshops.
Okay.
Workshop.
More
Okay.
workshop.
The one in May is going to be a workshop?
No.
This is a workshop. The one in May is going to be potentially a public hearing.
Public hearing in May. Okay.
Okay.
So we can, you'll have last look at it then, but we should probably get changes in before then. All right.
And just as on one note, I'm very receptive to any suggestions you may have. I believe you've got my email. If not, it's on the website. If you have any comments, if you see anything, I'm more than receptive.
All right.
Got
Fantastic.
it. Perfect.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have wheeled all-terrain vehicles. Workshop for proposed code amendments regulating the use of wheeled all-terrain vehicles within the city of Woodland limits. We have a staff presentation on this.
Thank you.
Oh, it's David again.
Yes, it's me again. You will get him on one of them. I promise.
You're doing a great job.
We've heard,
Thank you.
We've heard a whole, well, I guess only me and Brian. We've heard a lot from Travis over the years. It's good to have some fresh faces.
I'm glad you're happy about it. So this will be the first workshop on our potential wheeled ATV municipal code amendment. So the work plan is fairly similar. This is going to be the first workshop, and hopefully we will be having a public hearing for this on May 19th as well, and then an introductory workshop in the City Council sometime early June. And then we'll move on to two further readings in the City Council. So what is a wheeled all-terrain vehicle? I have all the definitions right up here in the code. These are directly from the code that I proposed. I'm not going to read you the exact specifications, but essentially there are three separate types of all-terrain vehicles that are generally considered part of the wheeled all-terrain vehicle family. There will be all-terrain vehicles, or ATV, which is any motorized non-highway vehicle with handlebars that is 51 inches or less in width. Utility all-terrain vehicles, or UTV, which would be a utility-type vehicle designed for and capable of travel over designated roads that travels on 4 or more low-pressure tires of 20 psi or less and has a maximum width less than 74 inches. And then off-road vehicles, which is a non-street registered vehicle when used for recreational purposes on non-highway roads. So as part of the code, going through the process with the code, the original path I was pointed down to was to make it a subsection of the current existing code related to golf carts and within the golf cart zone in Woodland, which was established, I believe, a couple years ago. One of the reasons my suggestion is to split it off from that is because of the permitting process that is already done by the state. Within the code that I propose, we are not suggesting a separate permitting process. As from my research, what I found was there is a fairly comprehensive permitting and inspection process utilized by the state through the Department of Licensing. So the code, in short, asks and requires all operators of WATVs on public woodland roads comply with all Washington State registration requirements in accordance with RCW 4609-410 and RCW 4609-420, as well as meet all equipment requirements and be certified by a Washington State licensed wheeled all-terrain vehicle dealer, a motor vehicle repair shop, and meet all declaration requirements in accordance to RCW 4609-457. So just to give you an idea of what the statewide process is, just in case you are not aware, it's going to be fairly similar to registering your car, so it's familiar to everyone, and owners of WATVs that currently use their vehicles on public roads outside of Woodland, where they are explicitly allowed, should theoretically already have this registration and licensing requirements met. So again, it's not pushing them into a separate system and inconveniencing them. It's not giving staff, either of the police department, public works, or the clerks, any more responsibilities for something that's already covered under Washington State Code and has an established process. However, this is obviously up for discussion if you feel a specific, Woodland-specific registration process should be done. So, as I said, currently in Washington State, WATV registration is through the Washington State Department of Licensing. It must be titled and registered. You must title or register the WATV within 15 days of purchase, or there are fines. So if you miss it, there are fines you pay. And the Department of Licensing will provide title registration as well as a metal tab akin to a motorcycle license plate for the WATV. Owners are also expected to get both on-road and off-road tabs to place on their WATV's plate from the Department of Licensing. And as part of that process, to drive to be considered street legal, the applicants must have a Washington State licensed WATV dealer or repair shop perform a full safety inspection on the vehicle. And per the Washington State Code, that cannot cost more than $50. That would be the inspection, the safety inspection. And so just to give you an idea of the safety inspection process and what is required for a road legal WATV per the Washington State Code, they are required to have lights, both head and tail lights, plus the stopping lights, UTVs, so that's the utility, essentially the utility ATV market, do require 2 tail lights to be road legal. They require reflectors, turn signals, mirrors, as well as a windshield horn, brakes in working order, as well as seatbelts. Essentially the same basic requirements of a car. So the aspect of this that is, I'm sure Mike is going to want to discuss, and it's potentially the most kind of worthy of discussion to me, is the limitations on where in Woodland WATVs can drive. We have an established golf cart zone, which basically says that golf carts, because of their size, their weight, and the inability to really to drive on property owned by the Washington Department of Transportation, so Lewis River Road, they only can go on the west side of I-5 in certain areas. Something to note is the specific limitations I placed here were meant to be rather conservative. These are kind of the base level, assuming that the council and the commission feel that there are legitimate safety issues involved, and I'm expecting to expand this as we go through the process. To where I got these was from the established golf cart zone, as well as comparing that with the established map of designated truck routes within Woodland. The idea being that you don't want ATVs, which tend to be lower to the ground and have a smaller stature, sharing the road with large trucks and large equipment could have specific risks and dangers and safety concerns around them. And something I should note is that I have found that WATVs can be used and utilized on state highways as long as those highways have a speed limit of 35 miles per hour or less. So that would not be I-5. That could potentially include Pacific, Atlantic, as well as potentially Lewis River Road within the city of Woodland. So we can definitely expand these, and in fact, I expect to expand them. It's fine. I just drew a very quick map here, but basically showing the roads that would not be allowed on the west side per the written code. So you can see that most of Pacific would not be allowed, as well as Bozarth, between Gorg and 6th Street. Again, that's a designated truck route. And then you have North Pekin and Guild Road as well. Again, because of the truck route and the concerns over that. So again, I would absolutely like to hear your comments regarding these. And again, I do expect that this will end up broadening out. When I wrote this, something else to note is when I wrote this code, I did not get confirmation that WATVs would be allowed on highway roads. So that's one of the major reasons I left it on this side on the west side. And I did not have the chance before putting it into the packet to hear back and get that confirmation. So that's also part of the reason some of these decisions were made. And so with that, I would like to open up the floor to discussion, questions, comment.
Okay, we have any quick questions for staff? I do want to let our public talk here in a minute, but anything quick before we
Sure.
do that?
I see you put a lot of work into, what a WATV is, right? And I
Mhm.
appreciate that. I didn't hear a lot about what requirements the driver or the operator has. I'm assuming they have to have a driver's license? Is
Yes,
that an-
yes.
Okay,
Within the code, the actual code itself, it does go into a lot of that.
good.
To me, it was mainly what you would expect. They have to have a driver's license. They have to be old enough to drive.
Do they have to have insurance?
I did not actually think about that.
Just, I
So
mean-
that's a very good, I will look into that.
Those are my only two.
Yep. And also, you also have to be registered and have the inspection up to date and tabs. You have to follow all rules of the road. I think I specifically wrote in there that that it's limited to one ATV per lane, so no two in a single lane, just because I know that that's something that might become an issue at times. So I want to be extra careful to make sure that's clear.
Okay. Shauna, Sharon, have any quick thoughts before I hear from Mike?
Do we have a lot of demand for this?
I do know that Mike has been pushing for it pretty heavily. I know he's very involved with that. I know we also have a couple other people who have shown up at council meetings and asked for this code, a version of this code, to be put in place because they are interested in utilizing their WATVs within Woodland.
Travis, yeah.
So if you're done, for some reason, the go-to meeting has a 40-minute time limit.
Okay.
And so if we could take a quick break, I will log on again.
Okay.
And that way Mike is not rushed and he gets a
Okay.
chance for back and forth.
Does that sound all right, Mike?
He's having a hard time there.
Okay, I'm gonna-
Mike, did you read the comments by any chance? The chat? Mike, did you check the chat by any chance?
Oh, let me see where that's at. Let's see here. Oh, okay, here we go.
So if you just wanna take a quick break, he should be able to hear you.
Okay, fantastic. So, yeah, let's take a 5-minute break, biology break, and let Travis reset the go-to meeting, and we'll hear from you first thing after that, Mike.
Okay, thanks.
So, Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to log off and log on to the meeting again because for some reason I'm stuck with a 40-minute timer and I'm just a few minutes left. So you'll have to log
All right.
off and then log back on, okay?
I just noticed the chat thing. I usually
Yeah.
don't use go to meeting, but
Oh, okay. So I'll be back in a couple minutes and you can log on again.
okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Oh.
I had no idea that there was like licensing and all for things. I wonder if people actually comply.
Well, if they get pulled over.
If they get pulled over, yeah.
My parents live in Arizona, and these are all over the roads in Arizona.
I live on Bozarth, and my neighbor already thinks it's the law. It doesn't bother me, though. I mean, it's just during the day. It's
Like if you live on Bozarth and you want to.
Okay, Mike, can you do a test?
Well, I have one. I have a dirt
Can you
bike,
hear us, Mike?
and I read it too.
The guy on my street's cool about it. He's not tearing anything up or anything. He's just
Okay, start.
Maybe that's why it's
Oh.
yeah, all right. One pill makes you smaller.
That's the airplane, not Jimi Hendrix.
Do a test, Mike.
I turned my volume down halfway. See if that helps.
That sounds great. Okay.
Mike, can you hear us?
Now I can't hear anything.
All right, can you?
There we-
All right, okay. We can hear you pretty well, so let's say you want to limit your comments to 5 minutes and have at it.
Okay, so I had a hard time hearing because of the volume here. Or maybe you guys' volume is too low. I don't know. So I kind of heard something about the west side and truck routes and things like that. What does that mean?
Hi, Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear some.
Mike,
Yeah, I
can you
hear
hear
you.
me? Okay.
Well, now I can.
Okay. Any other suggestions?
Maybe can you use Travis's? It seemed like he was saying you could.
So that's my phone.
Just move this here and I can talk to him directly in there. There's no really. Sorry, Mike. We'll get this figured out. It's not like-
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Go for it.
Mike, maybe now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so this will work somewhat. So, essentially, what I said was that this is a big conservative kind of map, and I'm expecting it to expand. I
Oh,
also
okay.
was, when I put together the packet and thus finalized the draft that was seen here, I did
Mhm.
not get confirmation that WashDOT, Washington Department of Transportation, wouldn't allow WATDs on their highways, their roads, which includes Lewis River Road, which is one of the major roads on the east side. So that is part of the reason why it is limited to the west side, and I am expecting to potentially expand it more towards the east.
As soon as you hear back from them, or what's the deal on that?
Sorry, what did you say?
You're going to expand it when you hear back from WasDOT?
I have already, just earlier today,
Oh, okay.
actually, I got confirmation that was doable. So I am going to
Mhm.
expand it, and I am going to expand it potentially farther up into the residential areas on the east. If that
Okay.
meets with the mission and the council wants, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Discussion. In regards to truck routes, my way, and the way expressed to me by some staff was that there would be danger between the trucks and the WATVs, which tend to be smaller, lower to the ground, thus potentially harder for truck drivers and people on larger equipment to see.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Can I make a suggestion?
Of course.
Why don't you require flags?
On the WATVs?
Yep, I've been through 2 towns in the last 3 weeks, and Quartzsite, Arizona, heavy truck traffic, and they allow them in town, and they come off of I-10 pretty fast, and we all seem to be flying flags, and they watch out for us, and we watch out for them.
I will look into that. That is not something that I was aware of being a typical part of the vehicle.
Okay. Yeah, you have
Okay.
any more questions, Mike, or you want to give us what you think?
About, are you talking to me?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Oh, okay. I know you guys are taking a conservative approach to this. I get it. It's up to you guys. I mean, this is good start and everything to get this thing started. And I understand you want to take it slow because you don't want to see anybody get hurt. I get that. Like I said, I rode down in Quartzsite and I rode in Havasu, and Havasu is even faster than Quartzsite. They got a couple areas there that are 45 miles an hour, and they let us drive on them. And I didn't see too many quads or the smaller four-wheelers. Mostly what I seen is the big side-by-sides. And like I said, most of them had flags on them. I don't think I ever seen one without a flag. So, because you want to be visible, you know, and they were even letting us cross I-95, you know, through the stoplights to get over to the west side. But I understand that, you know, getting this started and taking baby steps with it, and I appreciate it.
Okay, you have any other thoughts? I gather that you think it's a good idea and you'd like to see WATVs in town?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, oh yeah. I've been pushing for this for quite a while, and a lot of our friends and our other riding groups are all for it, and I think it'd be a good thing for Woodland. It's a small town, and you know the highest speed limit is 35 miles an hour. Woodland's a good candidate for it, and I think it'd be good, you know, for the city.
Okay. One thing that I'd like to ask you, Mike, and staff, I guess, is about the seat belts. So, this from my time driving tractors, if we did not have a rollover protective system, we would not wear seat belts. Although we'd wear them if we did have rollover protection. Do you?
Yeah, all the side-by-sides have ROPS with full roll. They're either a lap belt or we have the 5-point harnesses.
Okay. Are there any?
Pretty-
Do you know of any without the ROPS?
Well, that would be the small ATVs. That's
Okay.
the quads. We call them quads, four-wheelers, you know, the handlebar ones,
Okay.
you know. You're kind of putting yourself out riding one of those anyway. I rode those through the years and still have a lot of fun with them. But I didn't see, like I said, I didn't see a lot of those on the street when I was in those busy towns. It was mostly the bigger rigs, these bigger side-by-sides with full roll cages, all the safety stuff that's required, insurance. Some of them wore helmets. You're not required to wear a helmet with the, you know, full restraint.
What do you think about requiring the rollover and stuff instead of letting the little ones?
You know, I think Kalama excluded them. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought Kelly told me that they excluded those because they were a little leery about them in town, and I get it. You know, you're exposed. It'd be like riding a bicycle with a souped-up motor on it, and you know, and they will tip over if you don't know you know, if you don't lean and do all that kind of stuff. But you know, the side-by-sides will turn over too if you jerk the wheel real hard. We just gotta, you know, a lot of the guys are experienced that drive them, and you're protected and stuff. So I didn't see any accidents in the whole 2 weeks I was in Quartzsite, and then this last week in Havasu, we never did see anything. And I did talk to a local down there, and he's, you know, the old locals don't like snowbirds or anybody down there, but this one guy that's he's a boater and lives there, and he said, I think he's affiliated with the shop, but he said he hasn't heard of anything, you know, any accidents or anything. So, and that's a busy town. Havasu, you've been there, haven't you?
I've been through.
Yeah.
Never spent
Yeah, it's a busy place.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike.
And I can confirm what he said about Kalama, specifying which were allowed on Kalama roads. That was part of their discussion, and they ended up signing off on that and only allowing certain types.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, let's throw it back to the commission then.
So, I don't own one, but I've ridden other people's and they're super fun. When you go to Arizona, you're using it, right, out in the desert, and that's why they drive them around in town to get from their house to where they're going to drive them in the desert. What are you going to do with them here? Where
Just
do
like
you
the
go?
golf carts, just drive across town.
It's just like a golf cart. You just want to expand the
small car.
use to this ATV, right? Who am I to be Captain Bring Down on somebody having fun? I don't, I just don't want anybody to end up under the wheels of a car or something.
Yeah, I think that's what Kalama did. They excluded them, I'm pretty sure, the little four-wheelers.
I know nothing about these vehicles.
My parents live in Arizona. They have one, a side-by-side. They're popular. I've ridden dirt bikes all my life. So the only thing that, I think everyone should wear a helmet and everyone should have a seatbelt on, no matter if they have the bars on top or not.
Okay.
And insurance. That's
So
just
here's
my opinion.
here's why you don't want a seatbelt without the bar, because if it rolls over, you're trapped under it. So they're actually that's why I brought that up. So I think we should either not require seatbelts if there's no rollover, or just require the rollover. Protection.
I will read into the revised Code of Washington regarding that, because that's where I got all those requirements. We are essentially saying you have to meet the Washington Code. So I will look into that, whether there might be a specific cutout or a way we can do that in regards to
these things are
allowing
different
that.
factors,
Yeah.
not the same. Maybe a seatbelt's still a good idea on those. Okay. Well, any other what do you need from us at this point? I like the flags idea.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm
Any
not
guidance
opposed to it.
there?
Okay.
I agree with the truck routes and things like that, but the flags, everyone has one. And I think they're important to have, from my experience in Arizona. So.
Yep. One piece of direction I might be looking for is whether how far we should expand the zone beyond what is currently there. Do we want to allow it outside of truck routes, or do we want to find a specific middle ground?
And do you want to, Lewis River Road, do you want
Yeah,
to?
exactly.
There. That is a busy road.
So these are legal on 503 outside of Woodland, right?
I believe they are, for the parts that are 35 miles per hour or lower on washed-out roads.
Oh, so there's a
There's a cutoff. It has to be 35 miles per hour.
Yeah, when it hits the 50-mile-an-hour area, they can cross. They can't go down the road.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
In the
So,
county.
that is.
Want us to put together a map of that speed limits for you?
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of, I don't know, just off the cuff, it seems like they'd be all right. Just about everywhere. I wish we could have I think we should just reduce the speed limit so we can have the golf carts everywhere too.
I think we might get some citizen communication regarding that,
That's fine. Yeah, I can handle it.
which is welcome.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so you feel like you got enough from us to move on that one?
Yes, I do believe so. I will work on expanding the zone and in a manner that makes sense. I will keep in mind your comments regarding the truck routes and perhaps seeing if there's a way to expand it while preserving some of that safety. And I will also look into the addition of a required flag, other high visibility options for WATVs.
Yeah, and check on the seatbelt thing, because
Yes, I will do that as well.
I might be all wrong.
One last thing, just if anyone anyone sharing the road with the motor vehicle should probably have some form of insurance.
Yes, the insurance as well.
'Cause
Yeah, another thing that I noticed in these other towns, the only signs that I see seen that were extra was share the road signs. And it had a little picture of bicycles, some UTVs, and something else. They had share the road signs. That was kind of cool.
I like that.
Yep.
You volunteered to buy those for us, right, Mike? Is that?
Yeah, I'll design them.
All right. Fantastic. Oh, one thing I did think of, so I saw off-road vehicle in your definitions. I assume those are excluded. We're not going to say those can be in town. Because they can't be.
Non-mode legal
Yeah,
vehicles would be excluded, so.
perfect. All right. I think we can move on then. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Moving on to ordinance 1505, remanded to us by the city council. Having a workshop for code amendments regulating the use of residential uses within the commercial zoning districts. Is this like when a federal court, an appeal goes to a federal court and they throw it back down?
Yes.
The court didn't do a good enough job and they have to
Yes.
put them in the corner?
Only this time it won't take an hour. Hopefully we can be done in 10 minutes because I just wanted to put this on your radar. It had been kicked back to you from the council, so I'll do a quick recap because not everybody was here for the full conversation, I think.
Okay.
So, thank you. Next slide, David. So, just the arrows. I haven't seen the arrows. Yeah. Yeah. So again, the work plan is we will do a workshop. We'll try and get some language based upon what you're asking me to do here today, and then we'll take it to the plan hearing and then to the council. Next one. So the mixed use standards that you had already sent forward, and that was C2 design standards do apply. The ground floor was to be 85% commercial, 10% residential, whether that's access point or mail slot areas, and then 5% for utilities and equipment, whether that's mechanical or fire riser room for sprinklers, that kind of stuff. Additional space is possible with a conditional use permit, but the idea is we wanted to ensure that our commercial district is used for active commercial uses. Next one. So we also sent it forward with no formal density limit. It was a 3-to-1 commercial to residential floor limit with meeting parking standards with two exceptions, and that is they could do compact spaces if it was a mixed-use building, and they could do a maximum of 20% shared parking, so it allowed for some recognition that day uses may not be as intensively parked, which opens up some evening spaces for residentials. Then ground floor height, 14 feet for flexible occupancy of the commercial space, and I've actually started to question this one. I may actually make a recommendation that that be moved to 12 feet because I think 14 might be a non-standard building height for like A occupancies. So, yep. Then height limit would allow for flexibility up to a 4-story structure. That's the 3 above the 1 floor of commercial. And no lot coverage standard, which matches the C2 zone. And next one. So also there is a requirement section for consistency with the comprehensive plan, multimodal connections to the community and recreation facilities. There's a section for recognizing that impact fees alone may not be enough to mitigate for the impacts because high-density residential is not necessarily envisioned in our comprehensive plan or even our water and our sewer and our transportation plans. So impact fees enough is not enough. And then the last one is you included a pretty comprehensive list of uses that you felt were not compatible on the bottom floor to have residential up above. So what actually happened is the planning commission or the city council was looking at your recommendation in the code, and they had some pretty frank comments about maybe 3-to-1 is too high. and they wanted to take a look at 1-to-1, 2-to-1, and also maybe this is just a bad idea, given the rash of applications that have come in. If this was Clark County, this would be a year-long process with a bunch of open houses and outreach, and it would take 2 years instead of the planned 1 year to actually come up with this language. We're trying to do it on the fly, but are we really creating problems for ourselves that we have no intention of accepting the results that come along? So they wanted us to have that conversation again to make sure that your recommendations reflected more than just a 3-to-1, and they wanted to know that you guys considered more than just the one which we might have. I may have cheated you out of those discussions.
Okay.
And so we just have the photos. So actually, I think there's the 1-to-1 ratio. Then the next one is 2-to-1. Next one is 3/1, and this is what we'd be looking at. And that's essentially it. Do you have any questions or comments?
So they did not like the 1-to-3 ratio.
My
They
question
want-
is, why is the city council afraid of the future?
What's that?
Why is the city council afraid of the future? And the past, Lieutenant. Sorry. Answer Brian's serious question.
So, I mean, that's why we're discussing it again, right? They thought that the 3-to-1 was not,
Yes.
they didn't agree that that would be
Yep.
a good use in the commercial zone.
So what's happened since we started this conversation is I continue to receive additional applications and calls discussing different uses. The most recent one, which was a curveball, and that is someone wanted to do like a residency inn. And rather than renting apartments by the month, they were going to rent hotel rooms or suites by the month. And because the Residence Inn is a commercial development, therefore, they're going to build an apartment building and rent the rooms by the month or the year or multi-year based upon the idea that it's a commercial use. So those kind of issues keep coming up.
You
And
guys predicted that, and I thought you were full of it. I'm glad you beat me on that one.
yeah,
So do
so
these units have kitchenettes then? Is that?
yeah,
Okay,
kitchens.
So
Yep.
they're actually a full dwelling unit.
Yep. And so it just seems to be getting more of an echo chamber because the more people who call and think it's an option, word gets out that, it might be the people who are trying to sell their property are saying, oh yeah, I've already had one person talk to City Hall and they said, yeah, an RV park was fine and a hotel was fine and you can rent it by 6-month rent for your hotel room. Who knows how the word is getting around, but word is definitely out that Woodland is a soft touch.
It's like the hobos used to mark on the fence of the Friendly. You got that mark on City Hall now.
Yeah.
Got a hobo scratch.
And then the other thing that's happened since this time is Logan's Landing has gone fully complete. And part of the reason why this has become a bigger issue with the council is they've been looking at the Logan's Landing application. And it's the exact same site that they denied a comp plan change. If you're familiar with it, it's the triangular piece of property that's south of Franklin, the stub of Franklin off of Belmont Loop. And it fronts on I-5. It's a big green open field. And in 2018, the applicant requested a comp plan change from commercial to residential. And it basically went through the entire process and the council said no. Absolutely, we do not want to give up 20 acres of commercial property for residential. They've now submitted an application and they're making an argument that zoning allows it, therefore. And those buildings are this style, 3 stories over 1, 51 units upstairs. But they're arguing that because they're doing a commercial parking lot on the bottom floor, that it's a commercial use, and therefore, so city council is getting less and less patient for the creative interpretation of our code, even though staff disagrees with them, with the applicants who are making that application. The city council is like, well, if you're not going to listen to staff and you're going to apply for something that isn't consistent with our code, our interpretation, or our comprehensive plans as we see them, then, the idea that, businesses are going to make good decisions that also are in the interest of the city council is losing faith in that.
Well, but these things aren't going through.
What's that?
But these things aren't going through. You're catching them.
Well, so it's an interesting question. We have a comprehensive plan, and it is GMA consistent, but the question is it a mailed-in plan that was done with the rest of the county, and are there loopholes? Because the Clark County plan, comprehensive plan, is a binder. It's a significant binder. Ours is not. And if you get down to it, because of case law and because of arguments and the issues in our code, if we were to write a decision and it were to be appealed to the hearings examiner and it were to be appealed to the Cowlitz County Court, are they going to interpret, yes, you have a commercial parking lot and you're collecting revenue, so on your business's books you're receiving revenue for parking, therefore it's a commercial part of your business, it's a commercial use, therefore the Cowlitz County judge could argue that, yeah, it's ground floor commercial.
But we excluded that, right? Council just passed
In our new code language, yes, but
All right. Okay.
So it's a big enough issue that they feel that the 1-to-3 ratio is going to facilitate people building 3 levels of residential with actually no commercial underneath. I
Well-
mean, if they build enough units, it'll still pencil out to have empty storefronts underneath it, right?
Yes, that theoretically that's true. But like in the case, we had the appeal hearing today, and Carol Rounds brought up, or City Council member Rounds brought up an issue, and that is on a 20-acre parcel, each of the 8 buildings has basically 1,000 square foot commercial space in it. And so there's 8,000 square feet of commercial space on a 20-acre commercial parcel. Whereas under the new code, you'd be looking at 80,000 square feet of commercial. That would be, a huge amount of commercial space. And you're going to have a hard time finding somebody to fill up 80,000 square feet. You look at the downtown, there's empty square footage down there because the mom and pops aren't building.
Then why are they trying to preserve all the commercial zoning? What?
Yeah, so the question is, okay, so if we wanted to get somebody like an Applebee's or an Outback, a sit-down restaurant, they're not going to come in on the ground floor of a commercial use, right? Unless you're Times Square.
Oh, I just think it's like a cheesecake factory or something.
Yeah.
Some of the garbage like that. Okay. So you brought up the Clark County model of doing all sorts of charrettes and things for 10 years before that happens. Do you think part of it is just feel like we're jumping into this too quick?
After dealing with the appeal on Logan's Landing, yeah, I am a lot more jaded than than I was when we started this process.
Okay, so what do you think about the idea of some interim code, and we try to spend some more time with it and think about some longer term stuff. So maybe 1-to-1 for the time being. All our exclusions, but then we sort of plan to spend some time looking into it a little deeper and hearing from some some designers, developers of things, models that we like, that might be appealing to council. Yeah, just so we can, like, see some other examples that are not Logan's Landing that might be a little more palatable to the community and to the council. Because, like, when it comes down to it, like, we have to plan for, what is it, like 9,600 population, 50% growth over 20 years. And we're not going to do that with single-family housing.
What's that?
We're not going to do that with single-family housing, in the space of what we've got. Right?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Are we, as part of the review of this SEPA appeal for Logan's Landing, we have the residential development up Lewis River Road, so the 150 and the 40. We have Oak Village, which is approved for 186 multifamily. And we've had about 200 units built since the comprehensive plan was passed. So we are essentially 6 years into the comprehensive plan, and without this current tool, we have about 600 of our planned 1,300 units either built or approved for construction in the next few years. Now, Logan's Landing is a bit of an anomaly because it's not on residential land, so it's not part of that 1,300. But they're talking about adding 400 units. So it by itself is about 18% of the city's population and 66% of our planned multifamily growth. And it's not even on multifamily property. So is it a giant correction, or is it a giant change in direction, or is it consistent with the comprehensive plan?
What size units were they planning?
So, like for Logan's Landing, they're doing studios 1 and 2s in the building. So it's a mix of
They're not
sizes.
going to be 2 and 3 people in each of those. It's going to be 1, maybe 2 people.
Yeah.
All right. How does that idea strike the rest of you? Kind of a conservative take for now until we can, spend some more time on it. Maybe get slightly more ambitious.
The changes, whether you want to do 1 residential over 1 commercial, 2 residential over 1 commercial, those are super easy. The question is, we can have the discussion. It's not as much work to do just remove the commercial uses from the code. So I basically would just pull the existing code and make some minor changes to back that out of what's currently there. The question is, are there other questions that you think you want to explore in that conversation and kind of inform the council of? So you were starting to go down some of those alleys of,
Yeah, I think there will be at some point. I just think that might take a little more time. And it sounds like we need to do something on this, right? Because we either need to say no mixed use, or we need to restrict it to some degree.
And we are scheduled for a comprehensive plan update. I want to say it's next year. So it may be one of those questions where we have to have that conversation first and take a look at, can we expand our urban growth boundary, or is this the more efficient way to provide services to a growing population?
Well, okay,
Go
so that, I'm
up versus
curious,
out.
I'm curious about that one thing you said about impact fees not being enough to pay for the traffic impacts and infrastructure. And I'm a little curious about that, because I don't know about, I guess transportation might be a little different, but I think underground utilities, my understanding is they're typically a lot cheaper if you've got more density.
Yes, but we don't do impact fees for those. Let's say, so here's an example. Park impact fees. So Logan's Landing is way up there by Belmont Loop, and the diamond of our park system is Horseshoe Lake. And is there any relevance to that much residential on Belmont Loop to how the quality of life. They are going to drive to Horseshoe Lake, which means we need more parking and there's going to be more people there. So the question is, do their transportation fees and their park impact fees offset the 20% additional population that's going to be using it? Is it time to buy a new park or develop a new park?
We just dumped 40,000 yards of rock into our nice bird wetland park across the street there. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, I think there's a. Yeah, I'm actually coming around to being a little bit more conservative, because I think we can do this well, and I think I'm hoping that we could, I don't know, include some language that makes it a little more incremental, right? Like, so that you're not going from a field to 4 or 5 stories, because that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know, if you were to put a 3-story building like across the street from the Centennial, that sort of makes sense to me, because it's already, you know, a fairly dense spot.
Mhm.
Like putting this on greenfields, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't.
So just, I know this doesn't have an answer, right? So, but I'm just going to ask you anyway. There's this drive to build all these residential units. How come they don't find a multifamily zone to do this? If they want to build them and they can fill them up, how come they're not doing it in a multifamily zone? Why are they focusing on commercial zones to do something? Do we not have the available land elsewhere for them to do?
That's a great question. One of the most common arguments that I hear, and in the case of Logan's Landing, when they requested the 20 acres along I-5 go to residential,
Nice
and
quiet spot for apartments.
well, and their comment was, commercial is dead. Nobody is building commercial. Nobody goes to stores anymore. They order from Amazon and they get their food delivered to them. The irony, of course, is we just had our finance meeting, and I want to say that the finance committee said our sales revenue since 2018 is up like 66%. And so somebody must be
And order
buying
weed from
stuff
Amazon.
locally. So, yeah. 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 So there are some reasons for that, but you know, if you can't find a truck dealer or a car dealer who wants to be located on I-5, you're not going to find them to locate on 503 or in the old lumber yard behind Oak Tree if they were to ever close down and move. I mean, I'm the first to admit I don't understand the commercial real estate market because I'm not in it, but I find it hard to believe that buying commercial property to build residences on it is a sound business plan. I would assume you'd buy residential land if you want to build residential.
Yeah, although, you know, maybe the commercial ends.
So if I understood you earlier, Tel, you were saying that you support the 1-to-1 as kind of a stopgap to talk about this further later, if we even need to, I guess. I don't know.
That's kind of what I was thinking, yeah. 'Cause I think there really is.
I guess I was looking at, when we were looking at these things, I was thinking, you show me a picture of downtown and that's where my head goes, right? And certainly these are all very urban settings, and I didn't think of how it would look if you were to cut this out and stick it in the middle of Belmont Loop, right? It certainly doesn't look the same there
Yeah.
in your mind that it would in one of these pictures.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what the way to do it is, but yeah, I don't know.
And how
It's gonna be tricky.
And how we really arrived at this is because of the height in the C3 zone allows for 3.5 stories, which we said, okay, yeah, really, let's treat it as 4 because if it takes 3-to-1 to pencil out. So we're making assumptions that, that this is okay because it's the only thing that pencils out. Well, maybe
Office building
penciling
is
it
what
out
we
shouldn't
made
be
that,
the
I'm sure.
primary function.
Yeah. I don't know. How does
Okay.
that sit with other folks?
I support the 1-to-1 if this
and I
is
like
an
12
issue.
feet too. That sounds fine.
Sounds fine to me too.
I agree.
Sure.
Okay, so, yeah, and how do we, I don't know, I guess I don't need a pinky swear or something about, we'll keep going on this, not forget about it, not forget about.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think Travis will let us forget about it.
Yeah.
He's kind of he kind of sets the agenda quite a bit, I think.
On the comp plan amendment, this is, I guess, a different discussion, or not amendment, comp plan revision. The last one, I mean, it was a long process, but it's,
Yes, it was.
our output from that is a little thin. I guess I haven't read other comp plans.
Yeah, so it was a long process because it was related to applications, and it really wasn't a community-driven update. It was more of a application review process.
Well, we
And-
had, what is it, E3 came in and spent, like months with us.
Oh,
2016.
so that would have been, that was before I got here, so
Yeah.
I don't remember that process at all.
I guess I'm wondering, if we do it again, like, was the city, like, too stingy with their consultant there? Like, how come we don't have a binder?
Yeah, good question.
I want a whole bookshelf of binders.
So,
Nobody can ever read through the whole thing.
yeah, so I learned a ton during our discussions in 2018, and that really helped me be more effective since that time. Because one of the things I said at that time is we're having conversations that are going to pay dividends in 3 or 4 years. Because we now have the Exit 21 study done. We know what the options are. We now have the housing analysis done. We've done some work on that. We've worked on some other code fixes that we've been able to get done. We've an updated water and sewer outlook, but we've also been laying the groundwork with Cowlitz County and the Port of Woodland and the school district, and that is I'm hearing a lot of those echoes coming back to me. We need to start planning for the bottoms. We've adopted the agricultural zoning. And so now all of a sudden we have Aho, and I need to let you know that the hearing on the South Woodland comp plan at the Cowlitz County Planning Commission is May 4th, so put that on your calendar while I'm talking about it. So they are looking at going from 5-acre minimum south of Horseshoe Lake to 15,000 square foot minimums south of Horseshoe Lake. And so we are now getting those residents out in that area who are basically saying, mind your own freaking business, coming into the office and saying, why are you guys letting this happen? And so that echo is starting to come back to us. So hopefully this time around, the conversation is going to be about, how big not only do we need to move the urban growth boundary, but how big should it be? And should we master plan the bottoms? The port and the school district and the county are now starting to ask, do we need to master plan the bottoms rather than just the city? So your question is a good one. Did we miss an opportunity, or did we just not get the product that we needed to? That may not be relevant, because this time around, we're in a totally different mindset. Just the mayor alone is like chomping at the bit to have bigger conversations and influence county decisions.
I would hate to see all that go to 15,000 square foot lots. That's a lot of trips through the city with no transportation impact fee.
Yeah, and they're talking community septic systems, so there's going to be some big open fields there, and multi-use open space that could be parks and that kind of stuff. So
What's
pros and cons.
What's going on between the highway and the river? This is, you probably don't know.
Which one? South on the way down south, like by the
That little,
Holland
bayou in there.
Holland America down.
Yeah, I
or
actually-
Hall.
actually don't- you can't
Talking about on the
picture it.
Clark side?
It's on the Clark side, yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I do shoreline permits for them. I should know. They might not be doing anything
Does he have your-
that was allowed.
Oh, really?
I've seen it down there too. They've cleared some stuff, and I was wondering, how come I don't have a shoreline permit for that?
Yeah, all I've
I
seen
don't
is
know.
gravel laid down. It looks like they're putting in a,
There's like a little inlet to the river over there too,
Yeah.
it looks like. I'm
Well,
sure
the
that thing of the
scuttlebutt around
shoreline.
the old folks in town is that they were putting like a luxury community in there with like berths for their sailboats.
I've heard nothing about that, but it's not unusual for me not to hear about something until the neighbors call us about it.
Yeah, they don't really have any neighbors.
I know, they don't.
Washed out.
I'll check.
Did they recently excavate that inlet?
No,
This
it's
isn't
been
Woodland,
No.
is it? So I guess I
No, it's been
okay.
there forever.
Because that's crazy if they did
I'll
that.
check with their code enforcement manager and see if I can find anything out for you.
Okay, you feel like you, I don't know, have some
Yeah.
direction from us?
So I think what I'll do is, for me, because the majority of the code and discussion is done, I'll make some simple code changes, bring it back to you. I think it'll be up to you to have a conversation and lay that out in a way that the city council hears the additional stuff that you want to
Maybe
talk
give
about.
them- specify some more whereases? for
Yeah.
me? Okay. All right,
Okay.
well, it's homework, everyone.
And actually, I think there's one more slide, and that is, we're happy to announce that Joey has accepted the permit technician job. So Janice is retired, and so we're happy to have her on board. So we're looking for the clerk 2 position to replace her out front. And then the quarterly report through March will be available next week. So if you're bored and you're looking for stuff to read,
Oh, you don't have to be bored to read that. Because that'll make you bored.
Quarterly report about what?
Development?
Planning
in the-
department.
Planning
Plan
department?
car? Okay.
Okay, any last looks, anybody, anything to say? All right, thanks everybody for your time, appreciate it, thanks staff, great work tonight and this month. See y'all next time. We are adjourned.
So I do know that that property over there, I think they got some sort of approval to grow marijuana, because I can smell it when we go down the freeway. When you go
Oh.
by that, it smells like
Yeah.
a skunk every time we go by that certain spot.
Yeah.
I believe that's
Where? It seems.
in one of those buildings along that agricultural business there.